Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me. It is Wednesday, which means we have tight ends, defenses, and wide receivers coming at you. In today's video, we are going to go over the top 15 options at tight end and defense. I'm also going to cover some notable omissions as well and let you know why I decided to leave those guys out of my rankings. If you guys have any start or sit questions, drop them down below. This is a critical week 15. We've made it to the playoffs. Let's leave no stone unturned and get all the information we need so we can absolutely dominate as we push towards that chip. If you are new to the channel, welcome. I appreciate you joining us. Please like and subscribe. The support means everything to me. It helps me out a ton as I continue to battle for my first 100 subscribers. With that all done, let's get into Week 15's tight end rankings. Now, the top four are pretty much chalk at this point. There's not really any way you can move them around much. At number one, I have George Kittle. He stays at home against the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Kittle was able to do something that not even Travis Kelce has done so far this season, and that is finish as the overall tight end one in back-to-back weeks. He has 27 targets, 323 yards, and 3 scores in those 2 games. Dang, homie. The aforementioned Travis Kelce is in at 2. He gets the Los Angeles Chargers on the road in a big Thursday night clash. The Chargers give up the 6th most points to tight ends at nearly 15.5 points per game. Even with Kelce slipping slightly over his past 2, I expect big things as the Chiefs can throw the hammer down on their division crown. Ha! I can rhyme. In at 3, I have Rob Gronkowski. He stays at home against the New Orleans Saints. And Gronk has not dropped out of the top 10 since returning from injury, so we do not worry about this bottom 10 matchup. Brady continues to look his way early and often, and the upside in the Bucs offense is obvious. Moving on to 4, at home against Green Bay, it is Mark Andrews. And in his last 5 games, Andrews has 4 finishes in the top 6, racking up 366 yards and 3 scores in that time. He's seen 40 targets in his last 4 games, and he's going to be called upon a bunch to help Baltimore try and keep up pace with those Green Bay Packers. At home against Carolina, and in at number 5, I have Dawson Knox, who has caught fire over his last 4 games with 3 finishes in the top 7 and 3 touchdowns in that time. This isn't an easy matchup, but with Emmanuel Sanders leaving last week's game, there are potentially more opportunities here to be had. Next up at 6, it is TJ Hawkinson, who stays at home against the Cardinals. And after missing last week's game with a left hand injury, the Lions are hopeful that Hawkinson is able to return. He right now is considered day to day, so it is too early to tell. For now, I'm going to rank him, but things could definitely change before the Sunday morning start. Prior to his injury, he had back-to-back finishes in the top 8. At home against Tennessee, and in at number 7, I have Pat Freiermuth. With finishes here or better in 2 out of his last 3, Freiermuth is an excellent option in a surprisingly difficult matchup against the Titans. They allow the 6th fewest points to the position. He has scores in 3 out of his last 4 games, so we hope that that streak continues. My 8th ranked player with a matchup against Washington at home, it is Dallas Goedert. Prior to Philly's Week 14 bye, Goedert went off for 105 yards and 2 scores against the Jets. While this matchup is far less than ideal, he's clearly earned the trust of Jalen Hurts and potentially Gardner Minshew, and has 2 tight end 1 finishes in his last 3. My 9th ranked player is Zach Ertz. He traveled to Detroit to take on the Lions, and Ertz saw heavy usage last week, and now he gets Detroit. I think that the Cardinals pile it on, even though they're going to be without DeAndre Hopkins, so that means that there's going to be even more opportunities here for Ertz to produce. Mike Gesicki gets the Jets at home, and he rounds out my top 10. The Jets allow nearly 15 points a game to the position, and Gesicki saw 11 targets in his last game against the Giants. I'm buying the smash matchup with touchdown upside. Moving on to number 11, I have Dalton Schultz, who travels to the Meadowlands to take on the Giants. And Schultz has seen his targets drop since all the way back in week 11. He bottomed out last week with just 3 of them. He caught 1 ball for 4 yards. Dak is likely to give him more looks here and keep him involved, but there's more risk than I would like. The last tight end one in my Week 15 rankings is Kyle Pitts, who travels to San Francisco to take on the Niners. Pitts continues to see plenty of work and put up a top 10 tight end finish for the first time since Week 7 against Carolina. This is a brutal matchup, but the volume makes him worth the start. My 13th ranked player at home against Seattle is Tyler Higbee, and the Seahawks allow the 5th most points per game to the position, and Higbee is going to see more work with Odell likely out. He has been reactivated off the reserve COVID list due to a false positive, so owners hoping to use him can breathe a sigh of relief. Noah Fant is up at 14. He gets a home date with the Bengals. And Fant has 4 or more targets in 9 straight games and has provided a solid floor nearly every week the entire year. The Bengals are allowing almost 14 points a game to the position, so we like the matchup as well. My last ranked tight end is Jared Cook in that Thursday night matchup with the Chiefs. This isn't a bad matchup, and Cook has been reliable in 2 out of his last 3, finishing as the tight end 11 and tight end 13 in those games. He's a little banged up, so monitor reports to ensure that he's good to go on Thursday. Let's now move to my notable omissions. The first one, unfortunately, is Darren Waller, who travels to Cleveland, and it just is not looking great right now for Waller to suit up, but there is still hope. He's out of my rankings at this point, so check back in on Friday for start sit when we know more. My favorite streamer last week who absolutely bombed, and I am sorry for that, I have Ricky Seals-Jones as an avoid. He travels to Philadelphia. Now, RSJ avoided the dreaded goose just barely against Dallas, but he saw just 46% of the team's offensive snaps last week, so you are better served looking elsewhere, even if it's likely that that number increases. My last avoid, if possible, is Tyler Conklin, who travels to Chicago. Now, it is likely that Adam Thielen misses once again, which leaves more work on the table for Conklin. But it is hard to get too excited about it after he saw just 2 targets against Pittsburgh and is facing a top 7 tight end defense in the Bears. With the tight end position in the books, let's now move to my top defenses in Week 15. My number 1 defense of the week is the Miami Dolphins. They get a home matchup with the Jets, and the Dolphins get this top 5 matchup and have been on a tear for over a month. They will swarm Zach Wilson all day, force multiple turnovers, and make it 6 straight wins. On to 2, I have the Dallas Cowboys defense, which has been dominant. They get a road matchup with the Giants. And after back-to-back top 4 performances, I'm supposed to believe that the Giants are going to break that streak? Nah, I don't think so, and neither does New York. The Cardinals defense gets the 3 spot with a road matchup with the Lions, and at 4, I have that Cleveland Browns defense against the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, Cleveland has 3 consecutive top 12 finishes, and the Raiders just want to get to the off season. The Browns get multiple sacks and at least 1 turnover. At 5, and rounding that out, I have the Patriots' ferocious defense. They travel to Indianapolis. Moving on to 6, I have the Buffalo Bills protecting home field against Carolina. This is about pride and hope for Buffalo, who must make a statement and respond as their playoff hopes hang in the balance. I think they do both and crush the Panthers. My 7th ranked team is the San Francisco 49ers. After holding those Bengals to 20 points last week, they have a great matchup against Atlanta. At 8, I have the Bucs defense. They have a home matchup with the Saints, and Tampa Bay has finished in the top 7 in 3 out of their last 4, racking up 9 turnovers, 13 sacks during that time. Taysom Hill doesn't mind adding to those totals. They didn't look great against the Bears last week, but I like the Packers defense this week, traveling to Baltimore to take a banged up Lamar Jackson. At 10, it is the Texans defense who travels to Jacksonville. And the Texans are not good at football, but the Jags are even worse. And they allow the most points in the NFL to opposing defenses. It's not sexy, but I bet it works. The Rams have a home matchup with Seattle. I have them here at number 11. And on to 12, it's the Eagles defense who faces Washington at home. Now, Washington allows over 7 points a game to opposing defenses, which is bottom 10 in the league. Both of these teams are going to be fighting for their playoff lives, and I like the home team here to come out on top. 2-13, it's my Minnesota Vikings traveling to Chicago. And at 14, I have the Broncos defense. They get a home matchup with Cincinnati. And the Bengals just cannot figure out how to not give up the football. And the Broncos have 2 top 8 finishes in their last 3 weeks. They are not ideal, but they should be serviceable. At 15, it is the Kansas City Chiefs' hot defense on the road against the Chargers. And with those complete, let's move to my notable omissions. The first is the Colts defense in a home matchup with the Patriots. Now, the Colts have struggled on the ground as of late, and you may have heard that the Patriots like to run the ball just a little bit. The last defense that I am hoping to avoid is the Tennessee Titans, who travel to Pittsburgh. Now, the offense in Pittsburgh has woken up a little bit, and they have the weapons on the outside to hurt Tennessee, and that is where they are weakest. And that will do it for me for Week 15's defenses and tight ends. Thank you guys so much for spending some time with me today. I really encourage you to reach out if you got any start or sit questions. I would love to be able to help you out. We need all the advice we can get so we can get those dubs and keep performing to move forward in the playoffs. If you guys are new to the channel, I really hope you enjoyed the content today. Please consider liking and subscribing. It means the world to me and it helps me out a ton on my road to get my first 100 subscribers. This is Relentless Press. I'm your host, Abraham Opatz, and we'll see you next time.